Yeah, I've got no response
Welcome
from Megan.
everyone to Ladder Daily Digest and Megan's third verse, um, midlife revolution, right? And Megan is on her way, and don't know exactly when she's going to be here, but Diamond Dave in the bottom corner has suggested that we do this live as a way of helping make a little bit of money for Megan's expenses and also a little bit of fan interaction. And so we're going to try to get things going soon. So what might be good is if somebody has a question for Randy or Tim or Diamond or Gene, and then we'll star all the questions for Megan. And the idea is that we'll prioritize people who have put up a little bit of cashola, we'll say, donations, either as a super chat or something to Megan's Venmo. And I'm not sure how we can monitor that. Megan can check it as we go. Or somebody could just honor system. If you say you donated,
I
we'll,
love
we'll
them.
mark those as well.
And I want you to know that I can't speak for Tim or Diamond Dave, but if you ask me a question, I have an answer. Even if you don't ask me the question, I still have the answer.
Randy has all the answers
I've got them
to
all.
all of us, every single one.
And
I don't
Randy,
know about answers, but I definitely have opinions. So I can kind of get on board with that. Yeah.
Randy is going to appear on Megan's show soon. They recorded an episode, and so most of Megan's fans should know Randy from his appearances. But if a lot of the Megan's fans are just interested in her coverage of the Lori Vallow Daybell trial this past week and prior months, over the months, then they might not have seen Randy, but Randy will be on Megan's channel soon, and we invite you all to see that. We're not sure when she's going to schedule that, so um, let's see. Diamond
Somebody's
Dave,
asking, will links be put up to be able to donate? Deborah Owens asks.
Oh yeah, because I brought up it could be for everybody. So like people on Megan's side, they can super chat Megan or donate to Megan. If
and I know
you're
that Megan is at third_verse in Venmo. I know that is a thing.
Randy, do you have a Venmo or PayPal you feel
I sh-
comfortable throwing up?
I sure do.
Let me actually put up. I have to remember what my Venmo is, and then you guys can also Ladder Daily Digest super chat Gene, because Gene, I think you're monetized. Are you not?
I am.
What? Okay, let me figure out my Venmo, because haven't used this. Oh, yeah, mine is pretty straightforward. Okay.
Let me look at the questions and see if there's anything. Um,
You do that.
oh,
I'm gonna throw up mine
Fresh
in
T says she was
Megan's
wondering
chat.
what they were wondering what they were going to watch tonight, and so here's something. Randy, maybe you can mute yourself and call Megan just to get an answer, unless she's already responded to you.
She has not responded to me, but I'll be happy to give her a call. I was just looking for a photograph that I wanted to show y'all, and for some
Okay.
reason my photos are not. Oh, there they are. Okay. Let me show you. Well, talk amongst yourselves because I need to find this photo. But
That's right. For Megan's fans that do not know Diamond Dave appears with us on Tuesdays with Tim. Megan shows up for the show. We used to simulcast some of those, and Megan decided to just come on as a guest host. And Diamond has recently moved to Mongolia.
Mongolia. It's going to be officially 2 months tomorrow, my time, local time.
And tell us about how the weather is there.
It's like a colder version of Utah. It's pretty cold. It's dusty. It's dry. I love it. personally, because I spent a good part of my life in Minnesota, and it actually gets colder in Minnesota than it does here in Ulaanbaatar. But Ulaanbaatar is considered the coldest capital of the world. So we'll see what like the winter is like here. But it's like, I don't know. It's good. Like this morning, it was like 31 degrees Fahrenheit. That was like
Oh.
at 4:30 in the morning when I walked to the convenience store. So
What is that in 31 degrees centigrade?
I'd have to calculate that. I don't know off the top.
I mean,
of my
is that what do we use? Fahrenheit or centigrade?
Yeah, America uses
Fahrenheit.
Fahrenheit. Yeah, I know Fahrenheit. So it's basically like winter morning earlier in America.
No. Dang it, I can't get my photos to come up. I mean, part of them do, but I recently switched phone companies, and I think I might have lost a few photos. And that just makes me want to push little puppies in the water because I had a photo.
No.
Where
I
is
wouldn't-
Megan?
I wouldn't really do that.
You know, Megan traveled today, and I don't know if some of her travel plans included going out with her family tonight. Randy said that he had been at least acknowledged in a Facebook Messenger message, but we don't know exactly where she is. And so anyway,
said
but
she
she
was-
will be here. She said that she would, and Megan is a person of her word.
Why, yes, she is. You want me to give her a call?
Yeah.
So you go mute yourself and give her a call, and we'll get an ETA on her. And what is S-aid? Somebody wants to know. So we probably can say it. It's when somebody assaults someone sexually or abuses someone, and that's what SA is. But apparently, the powers that be don't share YouTube videos or podcasts if they say those words together or very often in a podcast. And so that is something I can answer.
Yeah. Welcome to the party, Eureka. First time here. Welcome to the party.
Welcome to.
And for Megan's fans that don't know Tim, tell everybody a little bit about yourself. About your little Mormon story.
I was a Mormon I was a member of the church for,
You can come close. Just say 40 years. 35 years.
46 years.
Okay.
And they kicked me out for telling the truth about the church. They followed me on the internet for 10 years through Genie and AOL.
I know that in your letter of excommunication, it says that they do not allow you to pay tithing anymore. Do you remember that being in your letter of excommunication?
Probably. I could find that out. That's fine with me.
I have contacted Megan's phone.
Okay. So you left a message.
I did leave a message. And I told her that I knew that if she could come on, she would. So we'll just welcome her as soon as she can. And, you know, she might be still on her way.
Somebody wants to know how Tim is feeling.
Fine. Good. Thank you.
Tim is feeling good.
Tim is feeling good.
So the live question time is available for the people who are here. So let's see. Randy,
We could
about
just
how...
start.
Say that again, Diamond.
Oh, I was just gonna say we could just start snagging questions about whatever that people have in the chat while we wait and just get the ball rolling, probably.
Rio for Life wants to talk about apparently hygiene.
That's
Hygiene.
right. So I take a shower once a month, whether I need it or not. That's what my dad used to say. Some people in the chat are talking about what Megan's religion might be, or if she has a belief system. And I'm pretty sure Megan believes in science, but she also believes that there could be something, and that there are at least, human connections and humanity to believe in and things like that. But we can let her answer that on her own.
Megan is still en route. She's on her way.
Okay.
Okay, we got
So
at least
that
we got
answers that
confirmation.
question.
That's for Della Bella and whoever else just asked that question.
Megan's
right.
on her way.
Megan's on her way. Chandra D,
Yeah.
this is a question for each of you. What is the mission for your channel? I'll let you guys answer that first because my channel's completely different.
Yeah, so Ladder Daily Digest honors creators. So I first interviewed Megan at the end of last summer. It was about her channel. At the time, she had about 4,000 or 5,000 subscribers, and she was growing. Her channel was only like 6 months old or something like that. And then after that, Megan helped me and Maven Brody interview John DeLynn. So if any of you are Mormons or former Mormons or people who follow Mormon stories, we had an episode where Megan was very helpful in interviewing John DeLynn, and that we did it in 2 parts, and one part has like 8,000 views and the other part has 5,000. For some reason, part 2s get way lower views normally. And there's one episode of something somewhere, I can't remember, but part 2 was like 5 times more views than part 1, and I should commit that to memory. But anyhow, and so we honor creators. Randy and I recently interviewed a few people. Talk about the shows that have already aired, Randy, that you've been part of.
Well, absolutely. I'd love to do that. Can I tell you a story first?
Yes.
While we're waiting on Megan, it was my first day of work at the funeral home. And the funeral home in which I worked, by the way, my phobia has always been corpses, dead bodies, funeral homes. I would not walk into a funeral home if I didn't need to. But in the name of research for my writing, I got a job as a funeral attendant. So my very first day I showed up, and the funeral home is set up to where in the front you have a big lobby with a chapel on one side and a very large area for the funerals, and then various rooms on the other side. But then you go down the hallway and you go through some double doors. Then you go through another set of double doors, and there's a garage where the hearses are parked and the vans that pick up the decedents. But then the next set of double doors is what they call the care center. And I walk in, and I've never seen so many bodies in my life. Well, I mean, I'd have no reason to, but it was during COVID. We had 3 big, large walk-in coolers that were packed full of deceased people. And then there was a semi truck outside that we rented that had, shelving all throughout this huge semi truck. It was a cooler truck. And that was completely full to the point that there were even decedents laying on the ground waiting to be processed, whether it was cremation or embalming and all that. So I show up at the job and I help out with this funeral. That was no big deal.
Randy,
Yes.
what year was that?
I'm sorry? What?
What year was that?
That was in, let's see, we're in 2025, so that'll be 2021, on the tail end of COVID. So I said to the funeral director who I was helping with this funeral, I said, "Hey, you know, this hasn't been as difficult as I thought. I'm doing pretty well." And she goes, "Yeah, you're doing great." And I said, "Just don't think about leaving me here at night to lock up." And kind of chuckled. And she looked at me and she said, "But actually, that's exactly what I need you to do." And I said, "For real? You want me to stay here?" They were having a viewing, and she instructed me that when the viewing was over, I needed to lock the place up and leave. Well, okay, so I said, "I'm going to be here all alone to lock this place up." She says, "Yeah." Well, I didn't want to tell her I was scared because I'm the new guy and I didn't want to lose my job. I'm like, "Okay." So she shows me all the doors that need to be locked up. It took everything I had to go back to um, the care center where all these bodies were in all these coolers, and and that's where the crematory was too. And I got those doors locked and ran down the hallway, and now I just had to sit in the lobby until 8 o'clock when the viewing was over. And I'm sitting there. By the way, no one showed up after about 6:35, 6:40. The viewing was done. So all I'm doing is sitting there in this incredibly scary funeral home. And I'm sitting as close to the door as I can because if something moves, I'm out of there. I'd break through the window. And it was quiet, and I'm thinking, this is torture. And all of a sudden, I heard the loudest blood-curdling scream coming from that back area. And it was definitely a female voice. And I jumped about a mile high, and I'm like, I didn't know what to do. I just bolted out the door. And as I'm standing there wondering, what in the hell am I supposed to do with this scream coming back from where all the bodies are? I heard it again. Only I realized that there was a big junior high school beside the funeral home, not right beside it, but fairly close to it. And they were having a pep rally. And this cheerleader got on one of these megaphones and she was saying, you know, "Come on, let's go." Yeah. And that just permeated through the building into my ears. And I was so relieved to find out that it wasn't coming from the care center. But yes, I have, Andriel, I have seen things about a funeral director trial. As a matter of fact, my fiance and I are watching a documentary. It's a docuseries called The Funeral Director right now. And it's about this guy who was very unscrupulous about how he treated bodies. And he, instead of cremating one at a time, he was cremating like they would cram all the bodies they could into this crematorium, breaking bones, cutting limbs off, whatever they had to do to just pack this crematorium, cremator full. And that's how he was. And then he'd burn all these bodies together and then just divvy up the ashes and give them to the family. Oh, yeah, I am Garrett Watts' dad, by the way. Thank you for asking, Lillian. Anyway, yeah, he'd just divvy up these ashes and give them out to people as though it were their loved one's ashes. So, yeah, I'm watching that right now. It's all about the trial that he went through. The Funeral Director on Hulu, I believe it is. Yeah. Or Netflix. Can't remember. But I wanted to share this story because it killed some time while we were waiting for Miss Megan to appear.
Nice.
It's
Somebody
the
wanted to
story
know-
I've never been.
So, yeah, so Latter Daily Digest, they have a lot of amazing creators on their,
It's a wide variety.
on the channel, wide variety. ex-Mormon. They talk about whatever they talk about. Gene does interviews. He actually had a premiere earlier today. Go check that out. My channel is actually much smaller and it's more focused around gaming. I'm predominantly on Facebook. So I generally do more gaming, commentary, opinions, that sort of thing on Facebook and YouTube as well. And then to answer, so I think it was Eileen's question. What was it? Somebody asked, is it mentally healthy to be cynical about one's old religion instead of moving on and living their lives? We are in our own different ways. I don't think any of us here are cynical about Mormonism. We all left for different reasons. But yeah, we're all living our lives. We're all doing great things. I'm trying to get Gene to come out to Mongolia at some point. That would be fun. Trying to get everyone to come out here to Mongolia at some point.
He keeps on yakking about that, I'll say.
Oh, yeah.
Eileen J. is asking if it's healthy to be cynical about your old religion. And let me tell you,
I'd say yes.
Let me tell you why it's cathartic for me and probably these other men. Because I invested 45 years of my life in just about every calling you can imagine. I invested thousands and thousands and thousands of
Tens
hours.
of thousands.
Tens of thousands of dollars.
For being, for doing service work and helping.
And we gave 2 years of our lives. 2 years of our lives to this fucking church.
Yeah. And I left on a full-time mission, as did Tim, right?
Yep.
You served a mission as well?
Yep, Germany.
I did not. I was a convert.
But it's very cathartic for us. I know for Gene and Tim and Dave and I to discuss our experiences, because we're in a club. We're in a special club that gave and gave and gave, and now we realize that what we were giving was for naught, because all the tithing and donations that we paid went into a corporation, and they didn't help people with it. They raised money and money and money to where they have now, in the neighborhood of what, 260 billion with a B dollars saved up.
They could have $1 trillion, possibly.
Yeah. And that comes from the tithing money we thought we were paying to help, to help people, to help.
I didn't give to poor people around, beggars around the neighborhood, because I just thought I was paying tithing. Other members were paying tithing. They could just go to the church and get money, or there were government services. So it made me less of a Christian, I would say, because of having sort of that attitude. And but the process of speaking out against it. So some people speak out against it, and some people are sort of militant about their speaking out, and that might be how they interpret how they were damaged, right? Like, it'd be like somebody saying, why did you give that restaurant 2 stars? Because the food was bad. Why couldn't you just move on with your life, right? Well, we're sharing information is all the podcasters who are ex-Mormon are doing. Just like anything else, check all the sources, check people's different experiences. And, but I would say that if the level of attacks or the level of concentration of your efforts causes you to forget to eat, or to forget to be nice to your family, or, causes you to be harmed in more ways, yes, it's harmful. Right.
And I think too, because being a convert, I didn't serve a mission because I joined when I was 31 back in 2020. So I was way too old to be considered. Right. But like I heard of a lot of stories about people who have like suffered like a lot of like physical abuse, emotional abuse, and things like that. And I don't know, to me it's like if someone experienced that level of trauma and then left the church and then said, "Oh, everything's fine," I would be more concerned about that because that's not a normal response to, being abused in that manner. So I completely understand why there are people who are very upset and want to speak out and want to make change. I get it. I
Right. And
completely get it.
Megan
We
has
want-
family members that have killed people in the name of Jesus. And she's trying to share that information and say, there are so many good Mormons, there are so many good Baptists, there are so many good Catholics, there are so many good Hindus, there are so many good Buddhists, right? There's lots of good, but there are some elements of the Mormon religion that has caused people to take it a little bit too far, and Megan is just trying to shed light on that, right? And my show, Latter Daily Digest, is basically trying to be a positive outlet for people who have created either podcasts or books or other things. Randy and I today interviewed a yogi, and our episode coming out this week is going to be about breathing, how breathing techniques can help you deal with life's problems. And so, but Megan has suffered more than all of us. And I don't know everything about Megan's story. She's hinted every now and then about things. And, but I think that we're going to do a show with her soon. She's also re-editing a book that she wrote 7 or 8 years ago. I can't remember when it came out. And it's basically her life story, I think. And so we're going to find more out about Megan's life and, why she in particular is trying to fight evil, we'll say, right? So that's one thing. So now connections with Megan, and somebody else asked have we ever met Megan? Well, Gene and Tim went to a conference in St. George, and Megan was there. Megan met Barbara Brown, and Barbara Brown and Megan did an episode about the Mountain Meadows Massacre. And Tim, if you're going to make noise, maybe mute your mic until you actually have something to say. I'll unmute it, and then you mute it now. And that way we don't hear noises, background noises. And I guess I'll do it again. But anyway, and Randy has talked a lot with Megan. And do you have plans to actually meet with her someday?
Oh yeah. I invited her up here to Spokane, but if she doesn't get that opportunity, I will fly into is it Texas where she lives?
Right, San Antonio.
I'll fly into San Antonio so we can break bread and have coffee and talk amongst ourselves. But
she has family in the Pacific Northwest, right?
Yeah, she's got a sister that lives in Seattle, which is a slingshot away from here. And I hope people understand that there's not one of us in this little group here, including Megan, who's out to damage the church or to make anti-Mormon statements. I think if people are happy in the church, that's exactly where they belong. But the issue is the church has not been forthright with their doctrine, with their teachings, with their scriptures. There's been a lot of distruths that have been taught. And, people need to know that. They need to know that Joseph Smith isn't what the Mormon church claims he was. And I think that in the name of information, that's why there's so many podcasts letting people know, hey, if you're happy, stay where you're at. But you should probably, full disclosure, know that what you've been taught is not what actually happened.
And I mean, on top of that, too, like here in Mongolia and as well as other countries, like what the LDS Church will do is in order to try and build a temple, they will do humanitarian work, with water and food and like you name it, education. because in America, they can, like Fairview, Texas, they can use the legal system to bully people into doing what they want. But going internationally, they have no legal grounds to do that. So they do have to play nice, right? So with that playing nice, that could be like, I would argue it could be seen as like an added layer of deception because, people here in Mongolia, a lot of them don't even know that much about Christianity to begin with, let alone the issues in the LDS church. So when they see the humanitarian stuff, your average person might go, oh, this is cool. Yeah, we'll let them in. And then, so it's important that people are at least made aware of the situation.
Yeah.
Just because there's not a lot of info out here on the LDS church, or in most countries for that matter.
There's not a lot of truth tellers about the LDS church. There's a lot of information, LDS propaganda, but not truth telling what it's really like to be a member of a high demand religion.
Right.
Go ahead, Randy.
Oh, I was just going to say, someone said that they want to hear more about my grieving. Megan and I did a show last week that she has recorded, and she'll be releasing. Oh, and thank you, Gene. That's the book that I wrote after I lost my wife. It's called Filling Empty, Filling, like filling an empty heart. And we did an entire show about grief and my efforts to overcome the pangs of grief and how I hoped to help people overcome their pain and pangs of grief. And that will air, I think Megan said that'll air next week. Yeah, so
Right.
So stay
and you
tuned.
You can go to Latter Daily Digest and see my version of interviewing Randy, and because Randy has a lot of stories to tell, and there's lots of times different scenarios, situations cause you to remember different things or talk differently or emphasize different points, and so I've seen the same person on 3 or 4 different podcasts, and I've learned something in each of their interviews. And I think the same thing's been going on with the Lori Vallow, Daybell case, where different there's hidden true crimes that have their take on things. There's Megan has her take on things. There's Joe Schmo has his take on things, and that they're all very interesting, takes. And so anyhow, every time I put something on the screen, it takes our names away. So
yeah,
somebody was saying things. So I'm going to try to be judicious where we go like this for a little while so people can see our names. And so here's a question for the panel.
Ooh, that's a good question.
That the deeper people go into their LDS studies, the more they seem to have faith crises. Seems like they either get out of the church or go all in. And I'll tell you, smart people can convince themselves over and over again what they want to believe. They can find ways to look at words in the scriptures differently, tie things together, and think that they're piecing together the Da Vinci Code of the Bible or something. And other people just think, gee, the most likely scenario after being indoctrinated and discovering how humanity works, how history works, how civilizations operate. Every civilization has myths about creation. Every civilization, the groups want to have something to think about how they got there, how they came to be, how they, why they do certain customs, right? There are traditions that get developed. And so the most likely thing is that these things are developed as part of community building and as leaders, to have stories to tell around the campfire, let's say, and also learned truths, right? And so the most likely thing is that 20,000 years ago, they learned some truths about, well, I'll say the modern versions are like a stitch in time saves nine, or be good to your neighbor, right? It's better to be good to people than to be mad at everybody. And that once civilization started writing things down, they started creating myths that could be repeated for more generations, and groups in control dictated what was said in those writings. And so in the Middle East, you had the Israelites develop their own creation story, their own flood stories, their own reason for existing, their own ways of saying our tribe is better than their tribe. And the same thing happened for the Muslims later, developing their own scriptures and thinking that those things happen. And then once Christianity formed, and especially once the Romans decided to make it a national religion, now you had the state enforcing Christianity, and they wanted to streamline everything. So they brought councils together and they said, if you believe in God this way, you're good. If you believe in the God, the head or whatever, this way, you're not good. And they got rid of a lot of the Gnostic teachings, and they went forward, and it spread. There's the symbol of the cross on the Crusaders. There's a symbol of the cross on the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. And there were, I live in California, all up and down California are Catholic missions that they set up every 30 miles for travelers up and down the coast of California. And they dominated the native peoples, right? And they set up the Christian religion. And, that's, and the Lutherans fought against the Catholics a little bit. It's the beginning of the Protestant era. They created different beliefs, and they said the Catholics are their control of religion caused them to be corrupted, and so there were reforms and different things like that. And Joseph Smith tried to fix some of the problems that were in existence in the 1830s, and he did it through creating new scripture, the Book of Mormon, and that grew into something where the leaders of the Mormon Church did the same thing. They sort of institutionalized things. They created dogmas where there weren't dogmas before, and that causes problems, right? So anyhow, I don't know.
Gene?
That to me describes some things.
Gene, let me speak from my experience, because I have experience with that question. I had a cousin. I was at BYU. I was in the history program. There were 12 of us who went through the history program. Of the 12 of us who went through the history program, only one of us stayed a member until they died. All the other 11 left. I have a cousin who was in the ancient studies program. There are about 15 or 20 of them. And of those 20 people, I know that about 18 left the church, and 2 are still at BYU teaching. So when you study history, when you study ancient studies and all those things, and you see how all of this stuff was put together, I've been studying religion for at least 50 years. And I can tell you how the Bible came to be. I was all put together and all the different councils and stuff. And once you realize how all of this came together, and that's why my saying is, all religion is mythology and all made up by men, and ultimately turns evil. All religion turns evil because it turns the believers against the non-believers, always. It makes them
the leaders
look
use
evil.
those teachings to control their membership.
Their membership, that's right. And that is evil. Any religion that controls its members, telling them what to do. Like, I have a friend who's Catholic, and I was talking to him last night, and I says, what is your greatest fear? You know what his greatest fear is? Not confessing to his priest before he dies. That to me is so absurd. You're going to say something to a man who you believe represents God, to save you before you die. Do you know how absurd that sounds to me? You know,
Tim, let me just interject.
The cradle,
I got something to say too.
the cradle to the
Wait.
grave.
Time out.
Where you start out with where you're damaged, and the only cure is the church. But anyway, go ahead, Randy.
I just want you all to know that Megan messaged me back, and she just got home. Her flight was delayed, so she'll be coming on shortly.
That's right.
Go ahead.
So I also have experience with this, and I come from a Hindu background, and I am Hindu. So to address the question from a convert's perspective is when you get into church history, you see that what was told by the missionaries in terms of like the plan of salvation and the very basics, it paints a very different picture. It paints a very, very different picture because when I sat down and chatted with the missionaries, I reached out to them because there were so many similarities of what the church puts out for the average person to see to try and get members, right? It's very similar in some aspects to my beliefs on theology and mythology. So when I reached out, yeah, sure, it makes sense at the time, and I joined. But as I got deeper in it, and then, started going through the process of the Aaronic priesthood and the Melchizedek priesthood, and I got the patriarchal blessing. That's when I realized, hold on, there's a huge conflict of my beliefs and values, my religious beliefs and values, alongside what the actual church history is. And that's why I left, in my case. So it's going to obviously be different for everybody, but I've heard a lot of converts have similar experiences to me where they initially joined thinking, okay, this is kind of the picture that we have. And as they go deeper and deeper, they're like, I don't recall signing up for this. And having been on Latter Daily Digest, Tuesdays with Tim, great panel. That's where I met Megan. Maybe, I don't know. How long has it been, guys? Maybe about a year and a half, Gene, something like that, approximately. Less than a year? Okay.
But since so much has happened in your life, you've lived like 5 years worth of life.
I know it's been so
you've
crazy.
moved around a lot.
Yeah, I have, haven't I? But yeah, so it's, just... that's kind of my experience from the convert side. And I've heard a lot of converts talk about this, and listening to like Gene and especially Tim and Randy and Megan talk about their experiences. I joined a completely different church than the one that they were raised in, because a lot of the things that are acceptable now when I joined that people don't seem to care about, those could get you excommunicated in Tim's time and Randy's time, things, so.
Amen.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. It's kind of wild, actually.
The church that I grew up in was more doctrinal sound. The Book of Mormon is actual history. Bruce M. McConkie was the doctrinaire of the church. We had a book called Mormon Doctrine that laid things out. That wasn't
church
supposed
leaders
to be
knew
official.
Every answer.
Church leaders had all the answers, and now they're moving away from that. In 10 or 20 years, they're going to say the Book of Mormon is myth, that it's all inspired scripture, and that it never happened.
I call it'll be called the Mormon Catholic Church, because we're starting to talk about Good Friday and all of the Holy Week and everything, where that used to be the bad guys.
We're adopting Protestant and Catholic traditions into Mormonism now. Yes,
crosses.
To appeal to the Protestant is to appeal to the Protestant base.
Yeah, we were taught that God the Father and Jesus Christ appeared to Joseph Smith and delivered the messages about don't join any of the churches. They're all, they don't have the truth. You're going to be used to restore the church, blah, blah, blah. Well, come to find out, because I went for 2 years to Spain and taught that to people. And then I later find out that that's not what happened. Joseph Smith wrote one version of it where it was an angel, and another version where, well, it was just Jesus. And the 8th version is what the church came up with. to fit its own narrative and doctrine. And the story about, wow, I didn't know I stuttered. The story about Joseph Smith seeing God the Father and Jesus Christ was not even written by him. And I was out there teaching everybody that this is his solemn testimony and what he tells us. Whatever. That it kind of upsets me that I misled people in so much as I was misled. But that's not what history has proven. Didn't happen that way, folks.
Yeah, that's fundamentally different than what I experienced and what a lot of people my age and younger when they joined the church experienced, because, Randy and, Tim and Gene, everyone's talking about, just their experience of being misled. Whereas in my case, and in our case, when we joined, it wasn't that the missionaries intentionally misled us. It was just they were excited to get a baptism. You know what I mean? Especially
like leveling up.
Well, yeah, and in my case, when I joined, both of my missionaries, I was their first baptism, and I reached out to them. So I reached out to them. I'm older than they are. The first few lessons, yeah, it makes sense to me, and I can tie it to Hinduism. They're just ecstatic, and they pushed me to get baptized early. In my case, I wasn't misled. I was a golden investigator. Yeah,
you were.
They were just happy to get a baptism, and they got so excited that they didn't even, I got baptized, moved to Utah, and then that's when we finished up the rest of the lessons that I should have gotten before I was baptized. So it was kind of wild, but
Jeff Isaacson, are you my cousin? Jeff, are you my cousin? Doug, Scott, and Jeff. I have a cousin named Jeff Isaacson.
So go ahead and answer his question.
This is not anti-LDS by any means.
Yeah, no.
This is just history that we've studied and things that we found about
telling the truth about the church.
The church.
Yeah, if history is anti-Mormon, if the truth is anti-Mormon, if finding out things that the church is doing wrong and telling people about it is anti something, like if McDonald's, if your local McDonald's was selling, cat and dog meat instead of beef, and somebody said something about that, would they be anti-McDonald's, or would they be doing something that was a public service, right? Or would they be just saying their own experience, right? And so
that's good, Gene. I like that.
Anti is the wrong word. It's sort of like atheism. The only reason why atheism is a word is because theists needed a slur for the people that didn't believe like they did. I am an unicornist, but nobody thinks badly of me for that. I do not have a belief in unicorns, right? I am atheist. I do not have a belief in a supreme God, especially one defined by other men. It's part humanity to think that there's something else out there, but it's part insanity to believe in somebody else's belief, right? And so that's the saying I've been saying for a little bit. But, there was another thing I was going to say about whether things are anti.
Well, and this is just my perspective, because I mean, I'll give credit where credit is due. This is a fair question, and short answer is no. We're just expressing our experiences, right? I mean, for those people who know me, I still have friends on this, like in the church, and I still have good friends that are like in the Ward Radio Discord. And a lot of you guys know about Ward Radio, and if you don't, they're basically Mormon shock rock podcasters, right? So no, I'm definitely not anti. I have my thoughts and opinions on the church, and I have no problem expressing my experiences on the church. I don't hate the church. I personally don't want to see it destroyed. I don't want to see people's lives destroyed. This is just my experience.
But do we want it to be better? Yes.
No, I mean, exactly. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with expressing a desire for people to have better lives, at least in my opinion.
And I have a son and a daughter who are still members of the church, and part of my one sister is still a member of the church. So, I mean, it's their choice if they want to stay. It's your choice if you want to stay, Jeff. It's
most of
choice.
Megan's fans right now have been hearing her talk about a trial that's been going on in Arizona, and she just returned from Arizona. In that trial was about a shooting where Randy's former friend tried to kill Brandon Brudeau. What's his name? How do you say?
Yeah, Trudeau or
Brudeau.
It's got that O in it.
Brandon Brudeau.
Brandon had been trying to warn people about his family members. Something was off. He was trying to warn people, right? Was he anti his family? Maybe, right? But he was trying to tell people that something was wrong, and he got shot at, right? And so similarly, he was trying to, make the world a safer place from his family. And now Lori's in jail and the world is a safer place, right? She was kind of
thank you. Yeah.
She and her temporary husband or whatever, illegal husband. I don't know. They didn't file the right paperwork or something.
Well, we're safe from them, but remember there are others out there who have that white
reading
book.
The same books.
That's right. There are other people who read Visions of Glory and that other white book that Megan talks about. 7 or 8 people out there who already have these ideas.
That's right.
And when we were at Thrive, we heard that all of what's his face, the polygamist that was arrested. What's his name?
Warren Jeffs.
Warren Jeffs.
There we go.
Warren Jeffs members have spread out across the country, and they may be a big suicide. All of them, they may kill themselves. They've been told Jesus is going to come, and if he doesn't come, they're supposed to take action. So there may be terrorist type of things or something that might happen with the Warren Jeffs group. That's very scary about what's happening with them also.
Right. And we know somebody said the word cult gets thrown around too much, right? And so I agree. And we say high demand religion, right, as a substitute for that. It's a little wordy. Cult is really easy to say. But I'll say one thing. There's been some death cults recently. One is Jonestown in Guyana, right? They killed themselves with Flavor Aid that was poisoned. Another is
Heaven's Gate.
Heaven's Gate.
They killed themselves so that they can go on a trip on a spaceship on the other side of a comet, right?
Comet. Yeah. And then there's
just
the solar
before those
temple.
groups killed themselves. And what other ones?
The solar temple in Switzerland or France. All their members killed themselves.
So all those groups just before they killed themselves were just high demand religions.
Yep.
And Tim just talked about a high demand religion, the FLDS. There's a rumor that they might be doing something like that. And so talking about that people should trust their own instincts, that they should take care of their mental health, that they should try to be more in charge of themselves is good. Some people, like Diamond Dave, appreciates rules, right?
Rules, culture, tradition.
There's safety in that, right? But it also creates an environment where some leader can take control, can be charismatic, and can cause bad things to happen. And here's Trevor saying hi. Trevor appeared on Mormonism Live on Friday night and gave us a shout out.
Hey, Trevor. That's I got to tell you, it was kind of weird seeing who I think is my cousin on here. And he didn't answer me if he's my cousin, because how many people can be named Jeff Isaacson. Just saying.
I don't know. Is he somebody that would think we were talking anti-LDS stuff?
Yeah, he's the one that popped the question.
But I mean, it's right
can
up his alley. It's in the wheelhouse that for that cousin to do something like that.
Well, I don't know. I don't know my cousins well enough, and I don't know what their status is right now. But yeah, I grew up with Doug, Scott, and Jeff, and their little sister Sherry. I didn't grow up with them. That's a lie. I think I saw him twice in my life. But if it is, shout out to my cousin. I hope it is you. And
for Megan's fans, she's coming shortly.
Yeah,
So,
she's on her way.
hang with us.
She just got home and is probably doing whatever you have to do to get ready to go on to a podcast.
So far
And you know
tonight,
what I like
Megan
to
has
tell
made
people?
99 cents.
I like to tell people when they, and I think I'm repeating myself, but you know, when they ask if I am against the church, I tell them my opinion and I tell them what I've learned. But I also encourage them to, if they're happy in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and if they do believe that the president of the church is a true living prophet, they are exactly where they need to be. They're in the church, and that's where they need to be. For myself, I no longer have a testimony of the truthfulness of the church, but my family, they're LDS. I love so many LDS members, but I don't love the leaders and the organization of the church. And I especially don't love the fact that I've been deceived by them. It's just not fair.
Yeah,
not right.
I
Doesn't work for
never understood even just how things change in the church. Like that never made sense to me because like I remember getting like proverbially crucified in the Facebook comments when I was a member because just coming from a Hindu background and like I personally think religion and faith is important. So when the church that calls itself the true church, the restored gospel, right? The LDS church went from 3-hour meetings to 2-hour meetings and was doing pilot programs for 1-hour meetings. I was like, wait a minute, shouldn't these sacrament meetings be longer? Because, you know, this is the one true church, right? Shouldn't we have 8-hour sacrament meetings like
If the teachings
we
are
do
good,
in Hinduism? Like if you go online and look at ISKCON, you can watch 12-hour live streams of meditations, of people meditating and praying and helping the community 12 hours straight. I got crucified for that because members didn't like that. They were excited that they didn't have to go to church as much. And I'm like, wait a minute. This is the true church though, right? Shouldn't we be more invested and not less?
if we're getting good teachings, we should have more of it.
Exactly, right?
Well, and what does that tell you about the members that they're happy that church is shorter?
Well, exactly. And like I heard the same thing about COVID because I moved from Minnesota to Utah during COVID and everyone's like, oh, this is great. We could do church from home. I don't have to go to church. I don't have to drag my kids out of bed. And I'm just like, okay, like doesn't make sense to me, but sure.
You know, it's interesting to me that I know that in the chat, they're still talking a lot about Lori Vallow and the case. And Lori Vallow is an example of someone who was so indoctrinated by not only the church, but by one of these authors who claims to have further light and knowledge, that in the name of that religion, she kills her family. How indoctrinated is that? And she was still attending the temple when she did. And
planning the murders in the temple.
Yeah, right. That's right there in the celestial room.
So there are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints who will say Lori Vallow is not a Mormon because she doesn't Mormon the way I'm Mormon. So it doesn't have anything to do with the church. And we will tell them all day long, Lori planned the murders while she was in the temple. How Mormon can you be? If, not very many Mormons can go to the temple. There might be one in, I don't know, 50 people that have been baptized Mormon that have temple recommends.
Andriel, I did watch RFM and Colby and talking about the sadness of people in the church. It does seem like they're sad. And I think that they're having to face all of this information now that the internet is widespread. They're having to face this information, and I think that a lot of them are having doubts put in their mind, and I can understand why that would make someone sad. It made me sad when I finally realized it wasn't true in my own heart and mind. It really hurt. It was a divorce situation, me divorcing my community. But thank heavens I found this community of people who have gone through the same thing. And it makes me really happy to be with these people because we are like-minded. We think a lot alike. So,
and I will say,
somebody asked a question about if I have any books. No, I do not have any books
You
yet.
have articles. They can look up your name and look
Yes.
for PDFs.
Article.
And things.
Yes. Anyway, let's go back.
And I'll reiterate that Megan is on her way.
Yep.
Hey, that's a way to get our numbers up, is just keep saying for every podcast we do.
Megan's showing up eventually. Yeah, stick around, guys.
Yes, we could the second coming of Megan. We can wait 2,000 years for her to show up, and we'll get billions of followers.
And I want to say, wonderful followers.
Yeah, on the flip side of the coin too, like there are members of the church who have loving, supportive families, who have good upbringings, and they don't have any issues. They don't experience abuse. They have good lives. But the sadness comes from people attacking them for choosing to stay in the church. Personally, I don't think that's cool. And then you've got like the infighting of the Christian denominations. You can go on YouTube and see all these people running around Utah, like going after like young Mormon kids, trying to like convince them that their version of Christianity is wrong. So I can understand that too. But I definitely agree with Randy that, if they are happy in the church and they're being productive and they're safe and, they're living their best lives, more power to them.
Right. And to Moonlight View and Mel Stiller, religion does provide structure, and it is very, very good for a lot of people. But when people want to point to the flaws and the problems, churches, organizations that are religious should welcome criticism. They should say, give us all the criticism you can, because that'll help us be better, right? Companies have suggestion boxes, right? Randy, you were a manager. Did you want to know problems that customers were having so that you can correct those? Or did you want it to just la, 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 I'm a perfect manager, there's nothing I could do that's ever wrong?
I didn't want to know just the customer's opinion. I wanted to know the employee's opinion. That's how the Walt Disney Company works. The employees are number one. The customers are also very important, but the employees are number one first. And if they're happy, customers are going to be happy. And Rowan, yes, this is Megan's channel, as well as Latter Daily Digest. And who was that was saying that, Robin, you're talking about Melanie. I kind of think she's next. According to Megan, she is under investigation. So I think she might be next.
That's right.
We're all waiting for that.
That's what they say. The proverbial other shoe will drop. And there might be like 4 or 5 shoes. I don't know. The way they were talking about multiple investigations going on. It'll be interesting for sure. And sometimes you do an investigation because somebody is helping unwittingly, right? and you want to know their level of knowledge, their level of conspiracy. And so all those things have yet to be determined. And the law sometimes is slow because they want to get it right, right?
All of you who are here for Megan's channel, by the way, we would really be honored if you would subscribe to Latter Daily Digest, which this is also being broadcast on. It would
And I
be
can
an
put a
honor
link
for
to
us
that.
to. Yeah, we'll put a link in there, and if you could click on that and join us, we love Megan's crowd, and we'd love to have you as our crowd too.
I agree with the instigator, by the way. The church really should denounce the book. I have not read that book personally. I've heard a lot of I've really heard a lot of negative things about it. And what's interesting to me is I've heard very negative things about the Visions of Glory, not just from, people outside the church or people who left the church. I've heard a lot of current faithful, members of the church bash it as well. So I personally don't know, like, who's buying the book. Like who is buying the book? Do you guys, know?
But the church will never denounce anything directly. They always do it obtusely, like when they say don't drink cola drinks. They don't say don't drink Coca-Cola, don't drink Pepsi. They say don't drink any cola drinks. They're very obtuse about things. Ward Radio recently attacked a woman, and the church, from what, who was it? Bennett said that the leaders of the church are reporting about what's happening on the internet, how all these like ward radios, what they're doing, and like Jacob Hansen and other people who are really rabid about the religion. But the only way to take care of it is to call these people individuals in personally and tell them to knock it off. But they won't do that. They're afraid of losing their members. If the church, those are the core members of the religion, are the most, what's the word? I can't think of the English word.
Say it in German.
Eifrig, militant, or
dogmatic.
Dogmatic.
Yeah.
Are probably Desnat people and people who believe in visions of glory and stuff like that. And if they tell these people, not to read visions of glory and stuff, they're going to lose them. And that's basically the tithing base of the church. That's where their money comes from. And they're not going to come out and say, don't read this book, because just think about all the numbers of that book that sold. There's dollars for them, tithing dollars for them. If the author is paying the church tithing for the book, so they're making money off it one way or the other. They make money by selling LDS scriptures to the fundamentalist Mormons.
Yeah.
The church only cares about making money. It doesn't care about your soul. It doesn't care about who you are. It only cares about making money right now. That's all it's about.
So that's a management 101 or some other business things. There are times when organizations, it becomes more about the organization than the people and the products that they're doing. And the people at the top are the ones that have the power to protect themselves and keep their own lives cushy. And that's just what happened. The LDS Church is a corporation. What's the corporation called, Tim?
The Corporation of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And it only has one member, and that is Russell M. Nelson. He is the only member of that corporation of the presidency. He is the only member of that corporation legally, and that's how the articles of incorporation are filed with the state of Utah. And you can go to the Utah Secretary of State site and look up the articles of incorporation for the church, and you'll see that he is the only member of that corporation.
He's the sole member.
The sole member of that corporation.
And I'll say this about, oh my gosh, what was it about? I can't remember now.
Was it about Ensign Peak?
So it was about the corporation. It was about the leadership. It was about the other thing that happens at companies is co-option. So like when the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints first called apostles, that was from a diverse group. It was from people from different states, people from different religions, because they hadn't been Mormon for very long.
Right.
Right. And they had different opinions and different thoughts, and they all expressed them for like 30, 40, 50 years. That happened. But
And they all had jobs. They all had jobs too. They just weren't apostles.
Right. They had careers, right?
Careers.
And so as the church becomes bigger and they have more money and other apostles die, they pick people to replace those apostles that look like the current members. And so you get yes men, you get not sycophant necessarily, but you get people who toe the company line, right? You lose the diversity. You lose the value of having multiple inputs for thoughts and ideas. And so anyway, so that has happened. And so the people who are just expressing their opinion about that are trying to say that doesn't benefit the people, right? That only benefits the top. And there needs to be change. There needs to be reformation.
The church wants its members to give 10% of their life to the church, not just 10% of their income. They want them to also give more for all the other fast offerings, tithes and offerings. They want people to increase giving them more money and more time. Members of the church clean the church buildings for free.
That's probably why they haven't excommunicated. That's probably why they haven't excommunicated all those on the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, because they're making so dang much money. That's a lot of tithing they're paying, and I think they're paying it. That's the hilarious part. Keep their place in heaven.
Yeah.
So yes, even members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints are encouraged to get blessings. They're encouraged to get patriarchal blessings. And patriarchs are trained to give the blessings a certain way. And almost every single one of the implications in the blessings are things that benefit the church and don't necessarily benefit that member individually.
Like sounds exactly like mine.
That was yours?
That was definitely mine. I thought my patriarchal blessing wasn't a blessing. I thought it was borderline insulting.
It didn't say that you're going to move to Mongolia someday?
No, actually. No. One key point that struck out to me, because I was having a faith conflict of just my personal beliefs and values and what I was hearing at the church and at the ward, and as I was going deeper. And I remember one part of my patriarchal blessings said, know that more of your ancestors have accepted Christ across the veil. Oh, I'm sorry. The first part was, I discharge you from the duties of your ancestors. Know that more of your ancestors have accepted Christ across the veil, yet there is so much more work to do. Now, coming from just, a background, a religious background outside of like even just mainstream Christianity, lineage matters, right? Lineage matters. So not only was I questioning whether or not I'm betraying myself, am I betraying my family, that part gives me the impression that I come from a long line of traitors, which is not a good thing, especially in Eastern cultures. So I thought it was borderline insulting, and that really kicked the stage of, okay, what am I doing here? What are the pros? What are the cons? Do I stay? Do I leave? That was part of what really got the ball rolling for me to leave.
Deborah asks, how much do those cost? Referring, I believe, to the patriarchal blessings. And what's funny is you used to have to pay for your patriarchal blessing. They weren't always free. Up until 1948, you were charged. if you wanted a patriarchal blessing.
Here's a good story. In the 1980s, our patriarch punched out and knocked out my bishop, who confronted him about abusing his wife and giving her black eyes. More was uncovered about the patriarch, and he was excommunicated.
That is
Wild.
insane. Yeah, that's wild. Like, holy crap.
I want to know what stake that was in.
Yeah, where was that, SJ? Tell us, please.
No, we are very curious.
That would be a good show.
And so
Yes.
Chad, I think, gave Alex a patriarchal blessing, is what they called it. But I
Yes.
think it was just a blessing. Chad could do whatever he wanted on his own authority anyway, and they can call it whatever they want. But we would normally, most Mormons would just say it was a blessing, right? He probably anointed his head with oil and blessed him to do the right thing and to kill himself, probably, right? That's the because the next day he was dead. Alex had done something.
Yeah, he said that his life, he had accomplished his mission, and something to the effect that it was time to go home. And then he wakes up dead the next morning.
So this is a good one. The steak was medium rare. But so yes, in the LDS religion, a stake is just like you would stake out your claim in California for the gold rush. They had those words where people would stake out where their property belonged. And so a stake in Zion was just a geographic area. That's there are words that need to be defined.
I took a date one time I told her it was the steak center. And in her brain, she thought it was a restaurant. And I think she was a little disappointed when we walked in and there was no smell of cooking steak.
Go
ahead, Diamond.
Yeah, I was going to say, just I find it really interesting, the dynamics of the LDS Church, because you have all these offshoots, and the mainstream church doesn't care, which obviously it's about money. But even when it's like the Lori Vallow situation, right? You have like these really radical groups, and like mainstream members don't even care that they exist. But if you look at other religions, if there are all these weird offshoots happening, they would be at the very least be shunned and like blacklisted socially. So it's just kind of amazing to me that in the LDS Church seems to be the only religion in my anecdotal experience that you have all these little groups running around that are doing bizarre things, horrible things, and like people just generally don't care. To me, that's just kind of mind-boggling.
Yeah, that's blows me away. But there's a lot of things that blow me away regarding people's beliefs and what they fall for. But the crazy thing is, I was one of them for the good part of my life.
That's right.
I just accepted it on blind faith. I was one of the sheep.
That's because it's easier to follow somebody to tell you what to do than to think for yourself.
Yep.
And they didn't want you to think, they wanted you to pray about it and get a good feeling. And that was all you needed. You didn't really need to use your brain at all. And that's where we were trained to not.
You're discouraged from it.
Yes. Yeah. Dallin Oak said to somebody who wanted to know how to resolve some of their questions, and he said, research is not the answer.
Well, I had a therapist tell my ex-wife that studying church history was not a good thing to do.
Oh, by the way, Tim Rathbone, you'll be proud of me to know that Amanda and I started The Handmaid's Tale watching that last night.
All right.
Already. I had no idea that's what it was about. I swear they used. I've only watched one episode, but I swear they used the Mormon Church as a patriarchal guide for that.
Of course they did.
Yep.
Yes. Or any Protestant denomination, any fundamentalist evangelical religion. Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great
And
story.
the trial was opened up with talking about Laban, right? Who is Laban? Who is Nephi? Because that was a big part of, they were going to be like Nephi, and they were going to do something. What were they going to do? Were they going to make their own smelting and ore and create bows and arrows? No, they were going to chop somebody's head off, or in other words, decapitate or kill somebody. That was what they were going to do.
And right off the bat, anyone reading the Book of Mormon could probably think, why did he have to have this young man go back, sneak into the kingdom, and hack off his head when God himself could have just zapped him?
That's
Could have
right.
just zapped him.
And Megan's going to come any second once she sets everything up. She's closing in on gracing us with her presence, and we all love and admire Megan. We all on this panel think the world of Megan, except for Dave. Dave is only about 99%. He's not 100% on Megan's camp. No, I'm just teasing.
Somebody mentioned the Jehovah's Witnesses in the chat. They dropped by today and left this pamphlet in my door.
Fancy.
The J-Dubs, huh?
They're inviting me to their meeting here in town.
Tim, you need religion.
Yeah, you need Jesus, Tim.
July 4th, 5th, and 6th from 9:20 in the morning till 4:45 in the afternoon.
That's right. The instigator says MLM is the Mormon church. Yes, I call it multi-level Mormonism.
Yep.
They send out missionaries to get more tithe payers.
I'm so glad I live in a country where I don't get those pamphlets at all.
No pamphlets allowed.
So how it works in Mongolia, and I actually had to do some digging on it. Foreigners can proselyte if they get a religious visa. However, those are extremely rare and very, very pretty much impossible to get. If a foreigner proselytes, they will be arrested, detained, and deported pretty much on the spot. Residents and citizens can proselyte. However, they have to stick to certain areas. They cannot hand out pamphlets. They cannot knock on doors. They've got they can walk up and talk to people, but that's basically the extent of it. And because just the cultural dynamic, people don't talk to strangers. Even smiling at someone here is reserved for loved ones and friends because it's a sign of familiarity, right? It's not something you do to strangers. That really doesn't happen here. So I kind of lucked out, I guess.
Under his eye.
Yeah.
What is it?
Mongolia got everything right, Trevor. That's why
I know
love
some
living
missionaries
here.
were in trouble for passing out something in some country. Was that Thailand or
I think that was
Thailand.
that was Indonesia. Wasn't it
Thailand.
Indonesia?
Somewhere.
I thought it was Indonesia or Malaysia because they have very strict anti-conversion laws.
Oh, you mean recently?
Yeah,
Yes,
recently.
within the last couple of months.
I think it was Malaysia. Yeah, I think you're
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
Rebecca Biblioteca did something on it. On the news.
Yeah. I guarantee you they got deported. Because Malaysia, Indonesia, countries with those kind of laws, they don't play around.
I'll tell you what hairdo Megan is sporting. It's either going to be down or up.
That's right. Is it going to be in a ponytail?
Did you hear from Megan, Gene?
She's below, but she hasn't turned her camera on or her microphone.
Gotcha.
I could add a picture of her. I could
add a picture of her.
Yeah, there you go. There, yay.
See, she's on her way.
Hello.
Hey! Yay!
Yay!
Everyone's sick of listening to us ramble. You had a bunch of people like, "Where's Megan? Who the hell are these guys? Why are they here?"
I'm
It's
not.
like
I'm
we're warming
not
up
turning
for
my
the
camera
celebrity.
on because. Okay.
Because
I'm not
why?
turning my camera on because I just got back from Phoenix, a very long travel day. I am ready for bed.
Okay.
You look great, even if you've been traveling all day.
Well, I guess we can do this tomorrow night if you want to, then, with you.
Okay, now Megan's here. Everyone, bring out your super chats on Megan's channel. Like,
That's right.
Yeah.
For every
Bring it
dollar,
out.
Megan will
Spend
stay
money.
on for 1 minute.
Is this streaming to
Yeah,
my
people-
channel also?
It
Yes.
is.
Right now?
We have
Yeah.
And your
200
people want to see your face.
Oh man.
210 of
We all
Megan
want
They all
to
want to know you.
and 3 of
They
mine.
all want you. They've been
Okay.
asking
Oh
about you
man.
for an
I'm
hour and a
so
half.
sorry. I
Yeah.
Let
know
them down, Megan.
it's been a really long day. I'm sorry, you guys.
That's
No,
okay.
it's fine.
Yeah.
It's all good. This was kind of
It's
last
okay.
minute anyway. So
We still love you.
We could do it with you tomorrow night if you want to.
No, I mean this is fine. I'm just
Okay.
it's just been a super long day. And I have to get up super early to take my daughter to dance camp in the morning. That is like 45 minutes away. So I think we're
Oh,
leaving at like 6 in the morning. So
what is
anyway,
it? 10:30
it's fun.
there?
Yeah, it's 10:30. It'll be fine.
Well,
We'll have your 200 fans each write a love note to you, and we'll read it on screen to you as like a lullaby.
Okay.
yeah.
Well, what's the topic tonight? What are we talking about?
So the topic, well, it's really just a question and answer kind of a thing, like
Oh,
a
okay.
panel. So people have been asking us questions about whatever they feel like. Some
Yeah.
of it was Mormonism, some of it was Chad and Lori. Had a
Ugh.
couple questions on Mongolia. It's pretty much whatever people feel like asking.
And Megan,
Oh, all right.
I starred some of the early questions. So if you want to hit the starred list, and if you wanted
Oh,
to
okay.
attack any of those questions just in a calm, casual, almost ready for bed way, you could do it.
Okay. Man, none of these questions are calm or casual. Man, they like the very first one right out of the box, essay. Okay, well, let's go for that.
That's right.
Um,
We answered the essay
I-
question.
okay, I actually can't show the comments on screen.
Okay, you tell me which one.
Well, I mean, you actually, why don't you go ahead and put the one on screen that you want me to answer,
Okay.
and we'll do it that way because I can't put them on screen.
All right, guys, let's mute ourselves so Megan can talk.
Oh, jeez. So Gene Aldrich, the church leaders need to disavow the creepy book that crazy Lori was reading when she killed her kids, Visions of Glory. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I don't think that LDS church leaders are going to jump into the fray on that. They're not going to disavow the book because they've already told the author, hey, please, tell people this isn't real. And he's like, oh, yeah, it's totally not real. And then behind the scenes, he's like, yeah, it's real.
Right, and I'll say that the plan is for Megan and I and Randy to do a show about Visions of Glory. It'll be like a Latter Daily Digest version of the same show that Megan did about a year ago on John DeLynn show, a year and a half ago, and we'll do sort of an update and just an overview, and we'll send people to that episode of Mormon Stories. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that sounds good.
I think I'm going to read it and become a prophet.
So somebody wanted to know about Chad's blessings.
Why did Chad do these blessings? Are all men able to give these? So in the LDS, in the mainstream LDS church, men are able to give blessings of healing or of comfort. I know lots of people had their dads give them a blessing at the start of a school year or like anytime they were facing anything that was challenging. So that's just part of the general priesthood of the mainstream LDS church. But what Chad was doing was, I think what you're referencing is the patriarchal blessing that Chad gave to Alex. And that's actually something that not everybody is supposed to be doing in the LDS faith. Um, you're supposed to be called to be a patriarch, which is somebody who can give a blessing to a person that sort of, I don't know, it sort of tells them what their skills and attributes are, tells them what they're supposed to be doing with their life. Um,
Yeah, so this was like an end of life patriarchal blessing that Chad
yeah,
invented.
the one that Chad gave Alex was basically telling him, "Hey, you did a great job for us. Thanks so much for being the hitman.
That's
You're
right.
gonna know when it's time for you to cross over so that nothing can be tied back to us."
And there's almost no way in hell that Alex died of natural causes, right?
I don't believe that he did. I mean, that
I
the
don't
official
believe it.
cause of death is natural, but I'm never gonna believe that that was natural.
Right.
Nope.
And here you made 99 cents tonight, just to let you know.
Awesome. Thank you.
Anne Marie would really like to know who is speaking here, who we are. She's asking to get an introduction to the panel.
Oh, well,
So
I
I
think
can
I've said
hide those things
before,
and okay, go ahead.
but Gene and Randy run the Latter Daily Digest channel, and Gene started that channel to honor creators who are on the Mormon spectrum, meaning everything from faithful LDS people to people who have left the faith, just who are creators, who are out here in the space talking about the things that they are passionate about. So
They could be
Gene
authors.
actually, authors, creators of all types. So Gene actually reached out to me to
Late last summer.
do a podcast about my podcast. And since then, Gene has introduced me to lots of wonderful people, including Randy, who I've had on my channel many times for interviews, and Tim, who we do Tuesdays with Tim, and Diamond Dave, who used to do Tuesdays with Tim with us all the time, but who since has moved to Mongolia and is less available. We're always glad when he can join us because he has a unique perspective.
Definitely.
Everything you wanted to know about this panel, but was afraid to ask. Thanks,
And by the
Megan.
way, Randy has a super amazing peanut butter coffee recipe,
You
but
know,
I don't know if it's public information if you're willing to share or not.
oh yeah, yeah. You know what? I've decided that I'm going to share it with the world. Jean messaged me today. Were you serious? Did you have some peanut butter coffee?
Here's
That's
some
it.
remnants of peanut butter right there
Nice.
on the
Good
inside.
job. I'll have to send you the procedure and recipe that I sent to Megan.
My wife hates coffee, I'll say, and she had a sip of it. I had to like force her. I told her that I was not going to have sex with her 10 times a day if she didn't drink some of this coffee. And so, no, I'm just kidding.
Wow.
She tasted it and she said, "Wow, I can barely taste the coffee. It tastes more like chocolate and peanut butter."
Hmm.
And so,
Nothing wrong with that.
so there you go.
Yeah. There you go.
So if Randy wants to do the quick version of the recipe, sorry, I interrupted.
Go
Well,
for it.
I hate to keep Megan up any longer than necessary, but I will tell you that I take a 32-ounce cup and I make my own cold brew coffee, which is so easy to do. And I fill it up about a third of the way, maybe halfway. Put a great big couple of heaping teaspoons of peanut butter in there, and I squirt some vanilla. I sugar free because I'm a keto guy. Sugar free vanilla flavoring in 11 pumps to be exact. And I put also a scoop of the Splenda sweetener because I have kind of a sweet tooth. And then I take an immersion blender and I blend it all up until it's creamy. And then I put ice in there and then top it off with coffee. Put the lid on, shake it up, and just let your tongue go to heaven. Because I'm telling you, it is so freaking good. I start every day with it. And it carries me through because I kind of fast throughout the day. And that peanut butter just kind of carries me through the day until it's time to have dinner.
There you go. And so here's another question.
Sounds
Megan is
amazing.
very fair in her voice. People who come at her are people who do not want to hear the truth. I appreciate her and her willingness to be honest, fair, and offer a place for people to learn. So that's not quite a question, but I concur.
Who's coming after Megan? That's what I want to know. What did Megan do?
Everyone loves
You
Megan.
know,
Yeah.
Diamond Dave, it's really just only my own family members. It's nobody
Oh.
else.
Oh. Okay.
Okay, here's a question. Do you think it's mentally healthy to be cynical about your old religion? Wouldn't it be healthier to move on with your lives? We answered that, but we could hear a short version from you, Megan, if you're willing to express.
Yeah, so I get this kind of a lot actually, where people are like, why do you have to be so critical? Why can't you just move on? And for me, the thing is, um, I'm not trying to destroy anybody's faith at all. I'm not trying to convince anyone that my way of thinking is the right way of thinking. But I guess the way that I look at it is that, I'm running my own race. And in the running of my race, I came across a giant pothole. And what I'm doing is I'm sticking a flag in that pothole and I'm saying to other people, hey, you guys might want to watch out for this while I continue to run on and do my own thing. Um, I just think it's important that we call out systems that are harmful, because I think there is far too much in the world of people accepting things at face value without really examining them. And having done my own examination and come to my own conclusion, I want to share that conclusion with other people, because I think helps to it helps other people to avoid possible harm and trauma that I went through.
It's like a 1-star review. It's just information.
Exactly. Yeah, it's information. If it's not valuable to you, you don't have to consume it.
Megan, that was so eloquent. You wax eloquent. And such a good comparison, sticking the flag in the pothole. But I like that. Yes, thank you. I'm going to use that.
It's a good thing. Someone did several people brought up we should probably reschedule this for next week, or maybe
to let Megan sleep.
Not just to let Megan sleep, but just so I think everyone can get more questions in for Megan as well. So we can talk about that too. I just wanted to bring that up because I saw that floating around and I don't think any of us addressed that.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at the starred comments right now, and I can probably cut and paste these starred comments and we could talk about them later.
Okay.
Yeah, I apologize, you guys. I'm so sorry that.
No.
Oh,
it's not your fault. It's the airline's fault.
I blame you weren't flying Air India and you made it.
Don't ever say you're sorry. It's a sign of weakness. When it was little, she wore a yellow ribbon.
Love means never having to say you're sorry, Megan.
That's right, Megan.
I mean, if we want to blame anyone, we could just blame Gene. How about that? We just
my fault.
I brought up the idea to Gene, and then I get a text back, and he's like, "Yeah, everyone's down to do it. See you in 8 hours." And I'm like, "Wait, is that enough time?"
Dave says jump. Yet. Diamond Dave says jump, and I say how high.
How high?
Yeah, Gene's like a racehorse behind the starting gate, and when that bell rings and those gates open, he's off and away.
And I'll say that Megan, according to her itinerary, said, "Sure, I could be there." And didn't know the snafu that would happen at the airport, and so
and also couldn't communicate with you guys because I was on a plane. So
that's right.
That was
and since we only got 99 cents, you couldn't afford the $5 to get the air phone working.
The $20 internet. Literally, they were like, "Sure, you can have Wi-Fi on the plane if you want to pay $20 for it."
And
by the
bug
way,
all your neighbors, your seatmates, right? By talking anti-Mormon things like history and science and current events.
By the way, I want to acknowledge that Kresha is in the chat. Difficult research. Kresha is the aunt of JJ, the daughter of Kay Woodcock. She has done more research on our religion than we have. And I'm gonna just put that as a blanket statement. She knows way more about Mormonism and all of the ties of Visions of Glory and everything else than all of us do. And her channel is amazing. She's done so much research
Would she be
into all of
willing to
these.
come on that show that we do?
Oh, I'm sure she would. Yeah, it'd be awesome to have her.
Well,
Yeah,
that'd be great. That'd be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. So I've helped Megan be introduced to some people, and it's Megan's turn. Damn it.
exactly. Yes, you guys need to know Krusha. She has a wealth of information. She's a never mow, but when Lori Vallow started unaliving people, she started digging deep into Mormonism and all of the crazy branches that come with it. And she has so much information.
Well, we're glad you're here, Kresha. Thank you for joining us, and we can't wait to talk further with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Okay. Somebody's asking in the chat for Randy are you related to Dr. Gary?
No.
Okay.
Everyone calls me Gary my whole life.
Okay.
I don't understand why, but no. I'm related to Garrett Watts, but he's not a doctor.
Yeah.
But he might as well be because he has more followers than any of us, all of us combined.
Right?
Yes, Garrett has more followers than any of us.
How many does he have? I want to know.
I think he's
Like
at 3.
It's like 3 million. It's like 3.5 million.
3.5 million,
fancy.
something like that. Yeah.
Okay, Randy, name them.
Okay.
Bob, Sandy,
Randy C. Watts is one of them. That's his
Okay.
follower. I don't care
Gene.
about the
Gene
others.
is one of his subscribers.
Oh, yay.
Somebody's asking you to post the coffee recipe again.
Well,
Oh.
they could
Post
replay it.
it.
They could replay it. Just use their mouse and go
No,
back
I
to
think you should write it and post it if you can.
Yeah,
in the
right.
chat.
I
Yeah,
have
write
it
it
all
and
written
post it.
down.
And Randy J. Watts, Randy C. Watts, what's your middle initial?
C as in Craig.
Maybe it should be Randy J. C. Watts because of how highly you think of yourself.
Boo.
Boo.
You don't see any nail holes in these hands.
And people could go to Randy's Facebook page, and
Jeez.
Randy's going to post it on his Facebook page. You could pin it as the first thing. But it
I
is good.
have-
I had it today. I vouch for it.
I have my coffee recipe all written down. I wrote it down for Megan. I even put the links in of what to order on Amazon so that your whole kit gets there and you can start drinking it right away.
Yes,
And you
that was
can
incredibly kind.
You can thank me later once you've tried it.
I can't wait to try it.
Well,
Yeah, I
Is there-
can't wait to try it either.
When it
See
says,
if it takes off in this part of the world, you know?
right?
what does link to
Sounds
Craig
good.
K's channel mean? Does that
Link
mean,
to what?
see, it says link to K's channel. Is Andriel, does that mean,
Oh, I think she's asking about Kresha's channel because Kay is Kresha's mom.
okay.
I will.
But
Heather-
Kresha is at Difficult Research.
Randy, you could type it in the chat. Type your recipe, Randy. And mute
Well,
yourself.
You know, that's funny you should say that because Heather, I'm under Randy C. Watts. I can't seem to join in the chat. I've been trying to all night, but it tells me that I need to connect to YouTube to comment, but I'm connected to YouTube, so I'll figure all that out.
Mine is
I
saying
will-
the same thing, Randy. It's not just you.
Sounds
I
like
will-
a StreamYard issue.
Yeah.
Megan, do you have a way of taking what I sent you in Messenger and putting it on here?
I can't because it's the same thing for me. When I click join the chat, it says connect via YouTube. And when I
Send it
click
to me.
that,
I'm
yeah.
going to send it to you right now, Gene.
Okay.
That
So
way,
here is difficult research,
Yay, thank you.
and then I'll get from Randy the recipe for coffee and cults.
Yeah,
Cults and
StreamYard
coffee.
has
That'd be a good
been,
podcast.
yeah,
And
cults and coffee. Cults
and
over coffee.
Randy's son is Garrett Watt, right?
Garrett Watts.
So before I got here, did you guys have a lovely discussion? What did I miss?
We,
It was
as
lovely.
gently as we could, ripped the LDS Church a new sphincter.
Okay.
We'll
All
put it
right
that
then.
way.
Well, it's good to know.
Yeah, it
Your
was a
son has
pretty good convo. We all got to share experiences with the church, and we talked a bit about the differences in kind of like the generational gap in like the church that I joined as a convert was nothing like the church you guys were raised in.
Yeah.
And even the dynamics of like how missionaries operate, because Tim and Randy were talking about how it's very orthodox. The Book of Mormon is history, things like that. But then when I joined, it was more of like, yeah, the Book of Mormon is a guide, and you can keep your culture. You could keep, you don't have to go all out, kind of a thing. And so it's, yeah. And then just the differences of experiences when it comes to like sacrament meetings and like how they're viewed now, where they're like decreasing the time of sacrament meetings and everyone's
Right.
excited for it.
So, Dave, I guess I don't know how old you were when you joined and what geographical area you were in when you joined.
I was 31 in
Okay.
2020. I'm 36 now, and I joined in Minneapolis, Minnesota during COVID, but also during the time of the George Floyd riots. I saw that firsthand, and yeah, I've got a ton of stories about that location because I spent a good part of my life in Minneapolis. But
Minnesota, you betcha.
yeah,
You betcha. You betcha.
I don't have that accent. I don't.
Like
But yeah,
Wobegon.
the missionaries were scared shitless. It was hilarious.
Yeah. So something that might be I guess kind of interesting is that the George Floyd riots was one of the things that actually pushed me out of the church. Um,
Oh wow.
I
Yeah,
think
I heard a lot of that.
examining the possibility of my own racism, like, am I a racist person? And also, obviously LGBTQ issues were a big thing for me, from 2015 on. But, the George Floyd issue and Natasha Helfer getting excommunicated for teaching about normal, healthy sexuality. There were a lot of contributing factors, but the George Floyd riots was one of them.
Yeah, that whole thing was a shit show to say the least.
I'm sure, yeah. I
It was pretty
really,
sure.
it's what kind of forced me to go back and say, okay, what was it with Black people and the priesthood? Because I seem to remember teaching gospel doctrine that Joseph Smith ordained some Black people to the priesthood. So where did we get it wrong? And I was like, was it just that Brigham Young imposed his own racism onto the church? Or was it that, there was some kind of doctrinal issue or whatever? And it was going back, researching all of that stuff that led me to the thesis that Shannon Caldwell Montez wrote called The Secret Mormon Meetings of 1922. And that was where B.H. Roberts he was a church historian, he was a faithful LDS member, and he had written a 102-page paper about all of the problems with the historicity of the Book of Mormon. And he went and presented it to the leadership in Salt Lake. And their response, rather than addressing it, was to stand up and bear their testimony that they knew Joseph Smith was a prophet. And, when I read that, I was like, they know that, like, they've been presented with this evidence by a historian who's a faithful LDS person, and they chose to ignore it.
That's right.
Oh, and it's like in the
No.
50s. Lynn Packer has done videos on YouTube about in the 50s where the church decided not to study history in an institute anymore, but to study doctrine, make it more doctrinaire, and move away from history. There's some really good videos on YouTube that Lynn Packer did about who won out in that battle, because some of the apostles wanted to teach history the way it was, and then the others said, no, we're going to do it this way, teach doctrine. And
To answer one of the questions in chat, did the LDS Church take a stance on George Floyd? I'll let other people answer. My experience was no. I went and was baptized in the Lake Nokomis ward in Minnesota. And at least that individual ward, that individual congregation explicitly stayed out of it, because it was such a hotbed of controversy, and there have been issues since I was in high school, in 2003 even. There's been issues with the general public, with the Minneapolis Police Department. So the only thing that the bishopric of that ward said on the matter was telling the elder missionaries, the young men, not to go out at night, to stay in these areas, and the sister missionaries had their own restrictions for their safety, just because of how dangerous it was. But I don't know if the president or the top leadership took a stance one way or another. I didn't hear anything on that. I just know what that ward did, and they just kind of locked down and did a little bit of cleanup work and really just tried their best to lay low.
Wow. That's amazing. I mean, amazingly horrible, but amazing.
Oh yeah, SJ, I have stories. Actually, I was driving around St. Paul once, and this was many years ago, and I got pulled over and I got a ticket for a broken taillight, which was not broken. But when I went onto the website and, you put in the citation number, you do all that on the Ramsey County, courthouse website, that ticket was over $700. So I drove to Ramsey County, and when I got there, there's an area where you can go and contest that. I waited almost 8 hours because there were so many people in line to contest tickets. And I took pictures and everything, and I just went up to the guy, and when I got in that little office room, the guy was just exasperated, and he just dropped it. It was it's not good. It's still not good from what I'm hearing, but
Wow.
So Randy, do you have more to tell us? Because I'm seeing in the chat that the most amazing thing is about you being Alex Cox's friend.
Okay, Gene, you have to also post it in Megan's chat if you can.
By the way, I've sent the recipe of the coffee to Gene. And Gene, I had to text you the pictures of what I use. There's just 3 things. And my little doggy really needs to go potty. Can I just be right back? And then I'll tell you about Alex Cox.
Of course.
Well, we should let Megan go to bed.
Well, no, it's fine. I'm fine. I'm up now. I might as well be up. I can sleep when I'm dead. It's fine.
No. You've been through a lot.
Okay.
So also, if Kresha is still here, I want to say a little story about Kresha.
Oh,
Um,
you have a
so,
story about Kresha? I didn't know you knew Kresha.
so I am Mr. Connector, right? Whatever, however you guys say it.
You're the Lego piece.
The connections whisperer.
The connections whisperer. So here's my first interaction with Kresha on Facebook in November 29th, 2021 at 11 a.m. I said, way to go after the church. And
You've known Kresha longer than I have.
2 months later, she responded, I'm not sure which context you're implying. Can you be more clear about your comment, please? Well, I probably was commenting about the show. So here's what I said. Maybe I was listening to Mormon stories or saw a comment you made on some sort of Mormon discussion thread or a TikTok somewhere. I don't even know, right? And then 2 years later, I said that Donna shared your video today with me, whoever Donna was, and I'm not sure. And then I sent her a link to Second Class Saints. I interviewed Matthew Harris with Summer Rain, and she
Love Summer.
hasn't seen it right yet. So I sent Kresha a friend request on Facebook like 3 years ago, maybe 4, right? And it's okay, 3.5 years ago. And I'll undo it because it's way down in her friend request, and I'll add friend again, and I hope Kresha's still there. But otherwise, Megan will put me in contact. But yeah, so that's my interaction with Kresha, because I've been working on people that interact in the Mormon spectrum for a long time, especially bright people that, what did I say? Go after the church, we'll say.
Yeah. So
No
I
pressure.
actually don't. Go ahead, Randy.
No pressure, Kresha. I mean, sure, you're going to you don't accept that friend request, but
That's right.
So Kresha, I don't remember when exactly we got in touch. I don't know if you remember, but I'm so glad that we did because, Kresha and I share a lot of the same viewpoints on how we got to where we did with and what she calls it is Lori Damn Daybell. Um, she and I have a lot of the same perspectives, but when I finally did get in touch with her, it was like, man, there is somebody who understands what I've been through all these years and understands how I feel about, everything that's going on with this crazy, ridiculous family system. Um, and Kresha actually has dug so much into the Tom Harrison visions of glory, all of these Mormon people who have completely gone off the rails. She's done a lot more work on Tim Ballard than I have because she has had more time than I have. She's got so many excellent episodes out there digging into all of these different dynamics that are so incredibly harmful. Um, I'm super grateful for all of the work that she's done and everything. Um, but I guess, the main thing I want to say is that, somebody, Kresha, who has never been Mormon at all and started digging into all of these things in an effort to understand like what happened to this family. It was all based in Mormonism.
None of it was from being in the local library club or
The chess club
You
that
know,
got a
a-
little out of hand, you know?
and I still get comments all the time on my channel with, faithful people who say things like, um, you know, none of this has anything to do with the mainstream LDS church. I'm like, okay, but if that's true, um, Chad Daybell never would have gotten anywhere near where he got without personal revelation, demonic possession, the gift of discernment. Like there are just so many things that are rooted in mainstream Mormonism. And that's the hard part for me, is that a lot of LDS people are like, oh, it has nothing to do with us.
I mean,
Yeah, I
just from
mentioned
the
that earlier,
convert
that planning murders in a temple is kind of Mormon-y. I mean, I don't mean it's what Mormons do. I mean, it shows that they're Mormons and it had something to do with it.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, like, just from the outsider perspective, I don't buy that for a minute, because it like there's so many ties to Mormonism. You can't just say, oh yeah, it like nothing comes in a vacuum, right? He didn't just
Yeah.
manifest all of these things out of thin air. Everything has an origin somewhere. Every belief he had, every religious value he had, that came from somewhere.
Yep.
Its foundation came from somewhere. And I mean, it was the LDS Church.
Yeah.
Like, you can't
And
convince anybody of that.
thank you for saying that, Dave, because sometimes I think that I'm, maybe I'm in my own vacuum and I just believe what I believe, and I'm the only one that thinks that way. But by the same token, never in the history of the United States judicial system has there been a trial that has referenced Mormon doctrine more than the Charles Vallow trial. And I know that the Lafferty brothers, they did mention it, but literally the prosecutor said, be like Nephi 12 times during her opening statement in the Charles Vallow trial. Mormon doctrine was quoted as scripture from the prosecutors, and witnesses on the stand were questioned about Mormon doctrine at least 7 times. There is no way that people can say this shit show had nothing to do with Mormonism. Unless they're as delusional as Lori Dam Daybell.
Jesus didn't come and save her.
It's Lori
She
Dam
didn't.
Daybell and Alex Ass Cox.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's, and I mean, I haven't really asked never Mo's and people who never joined. I never asked anybody I knew who followed it, like, what their perspective is, but I'm pretty confident the people I know would say the same thing, right? I mean, again, it didn't come out of a vacuum. He didn't just make it up out of thin air. And even if we just stretch logic as far as possibly can and pretend he did make it up out of thin air, it sounds very similar to the LDS Church.
Yeah.
So even if you look at it from that angle where he just made all this up, well, I mean, there's a lot of FLDS that believe the same thing. And there's a lot of members that believe the same thing.
Wasn't Chad planning to form his own group, though?
Well, he did form his own group, but
Yeah.
the formation of that group was based on the idea that we need to prepare for the second coming, which is very Mormon. He based it on being able to discern whether people were good or bad, which is Mormon. I mean, he called it dark and light, but it's the same thing as the power of discernment.
Right.
He basically said, I knew you in a past life. Well, I mean, there is this Mormon idea that we're going to become like God someday, and God one time had a mortal experience like we're having here. That's very Mormon. So all of these things, the things that Chad was trying to teach are all rooted in Mormon doctrine. And did they twist it? 100%. Absolutely. But it still is based in everything that Joseph Smith was teaching and stood for.
Righto.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, that argument's just wild to me. And I mean, I get it too, because if you're a part of a religious faith that, that it's your home, that you have family and friends in, and someone does something off the wall, you would want to, that would be like the gut reaction. So on the one hand, I get it. But on the other hand, that argument doesn't hold any weight with me personally. It just kind of comes off as, oh, well, we're not as bad
Well,
as they
see,
are. And it's like, okay, what does this have to do with you? You know?
Yeah.
Years ago, there was a book like Visions of Glory. I don't remember the name of it out, and the church did stop it in the 90s. I can't remember the name of it.
Oh, there was a book by somebody named Edie. I can't remember her name, but it
Yes,
was Embraced by the Light.
thank
And
you.
it was a near-death experience book. And I can't
Yes,
remember what the church said about it, but there was a rebuttal book called Embarrassed by the Light.
by the light.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
And
that's the
it
one.
was one of those things that was like, don't believe in this kooky stuff. But I don't know. It just that always sat wrong with me because it's like this is literally what you guys are teaching.
The biggest
There's
thing I
nothing
ever
in
knew,
there.
the church to like say, oh, don't read the guy's book was a guy that said we need to pray to Jesus
Oh, that's
Hmm.
the
in the
Bruce
80s.
McConkie, um, uh,
Yeah,
George
think about
Pace book.
yeah,
George
pay.
Pace's book, Gaining a Personal Relationship with Jesus Christ.
I
Mm.
have to wonder how much publicity. I can't remember his name, the author of the book, Visions of Glory, but how
Tom
much
Harrison.
publicity, and I'll bet you sales have gone up since all of this.
Oh,
Of
okay.
course
Probably.
they have.
So I think it was John DeLynn from Mormon Stories that pointed out that Visions of Glory was like the #1 bestseller of used books in Utah like 2 years ago.
Any
It's
publicity is good publicity, I guess, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
As long
well,
as they get your
the
name
thing
right.
is, there are huge groups of people who believe that Visions of Glory is a great book. And there are even YouTube channels that are dedicated to like reading and studying Visions of Glory.
Wow.
No,
That
I
is,
had friends who had a bookstore, and they were told to remove that book, the Edie book, from their shelves by the
Yeah.
local leaders. So
Was it
it was
Betty Eady?
Betty Edie, yes,
Embraced by the Light.
the
Yeah.
light. Yep. Now, they were
And
told to remove that off. They were told, came down from Salt Lake to remove it from
okay,
their
but
book. It was the Deseret bookstore was a private bookstore, but they were told to remove it from
here's
their
my
shelves.
question though, and I fully realize that I'm on a panel with all men, but I'm going to ask this question. What's the likelihood you think that they hated Betty Eadie's book? Because even though her book really confirmed what LDS people believe about what's going to happen when we die, what's the likelihood that they just hated it because she was a woman? I mean, am I
I
just,
think that's why they hated it, because it was a woman.
I think, yeah, if it was in the 90s, from just what little I've heard over the past like year from everyone on the panel, outsider perspective, I could totally see it, because in kind of that era, it's very traditional, right? So I can definitely see them clamping down on it because she is a woman. But if a man wrote it, yeah, whatever, you know.
well, because Tom Harrison's book says the same thing that Betty Eadie's book says. It talks about kind of the same stuff. It talks about like the same experience, the near death experience of having a tunnel of light and being greeted by your loved ones and, preparing for the second coming and having special missions and all of that stuff. So, what Betty Eadie said was disgusting. But what Tom Harrison said was like, oh, well, this is really cool.
Remember, Mormon Enigma was written by some women, and the church didn't like that.
Yes, that's right. Belleen, Tibbetts Avery, and can't remember her name. Belleen and Noel, no,
Noel Whitney.
no, Linda Noel.
I think it's just amazing how in the past couple decades the church went from clamping down on, like, women authors and like spokespeople to now it's like you look at the like the TikTokers and like the influencers, most of them are women. And if you look at their pages, a lot of them don't even follow the kind of core teachings of the LDS church. Like they don't follow the word of wisdom, they don't follow modesty, but the church isn't shutting them down now. It's kind of yeah, it's just this weird flip. Like, oh yeah, that's fine now. Like,
so somebody asked if we're all ex-Mormon. So I am currently a member. I go to church like 5 times a year just to see what's going on. Randy, what's your status?
I am currently a member, and I don't go to church.
Right,
Ever.
and I say hi to the missionaries whenever I can and ask them where they're from, and I try to be nice to them. Tim got excommunicated because he passed out truthful Mormon history 25 years ago, among other things.
Blasphemy.
Megan.
I'm a blasphemer.
Megan had 2 fingers, one from each hand, pointed at the church at some point and sent a letter, right?
I officially resigned my membership in February of 2023.
That's right. And Diamond Dave is still a member, but he moved to Mongolia just to get away from.
yeah. Yeah, so I'm still technically a member in that my name is on the rolls. I haven't resigned, but I haven't been to church since, and honestly, I'm too lazy to get my name removed. Although, if the SCMC is watching this and you want to take care of that for me, go for it.
You know what, Diamond Dave?
I'm fine with that.
If you go to quitmormon.org, it's pretty simple. You just have to print out a paper, have it notarized, send it in, you're done.
Yeah,
so the
thing is about that is I have to find a notary in Mongolia, which the only one that I know of would be at the US Embassy. It's not like I can go to a bank here and get it notarized like in America. And that's just too much work to go to an embassy to get it apostilled and then go to DHL and yeah, because here's a little bit different. We have to like send things via DHL, so we have to like actually go like 2 kilometers away, and it's fun. It's a nice walk in the city, but like it's just too much for one document.
So we have 3 male members of the church right now, and if Megan was to get rebaptized and run for profit, how many of the male members here would vote for Megan for profit?
I would definitely vote for Megan. By the way, Megan, would you text me that? The site that you just said, because the only reason I haven't resigned is because I haven't cared enough to. I don't even, if they showed up at my door and said they wanted to hold a disciplinary council, I'd say knock yourselves out. But
go ahead. I won't be attending.
I don't even care.
It's literally, Randy, it's just quitmormon.org. It's the easiest thing in the world. You just go, you just go, you can print out a 1-sheet, piece of paper, sign it in front of a notary, send it in, and you'll get your resignation letter, a few weeks later.
Wonderful. Quit
Ravina, and if I'm mispronouncing your name, I do apologize, but Ravina Denver brought up the Mormon rolls. The numbers are so artificially inflated. Yeah. I agree with that. Here in Mongolia, I have not seen a member, and there's like a meeting house like 4 kilometers away. There's supposedly 12,000 members here in Ulaanbaatar. I personally don't buy it. If you want my personal guess on active members, like Temple recommend holding faithful members, maybe a fourth of that at the most, maybe. And in India too, where I have friends and family, I think there's also like 25,000 members allegedly running around, shot in the dark. A tenth of that are faithful, active members, if that, because the cultural dynamics here in Asia, and especially in India with the anti-conversion laws, I don't even know if it would be, 2,500 people. With the culture and everything. I would really have to struggle to think of that, but that's just my best guess.
Yeah, they definitely inflate they inflate the numbers all over the world because a lot of members may not know this, but I just always want to say it when I have a chance. If you don't resign your membership from the church, they continue to count you as a member until you're 110 years old or
Yep.
until they have
Clever.
information about your death. And so basically, if you don't resign, they're going to keep counting you until you're 110 just because they want to inflate their numbers.
Yep.
So here's something SJ says, out here in the Bay Area, wards are closing down left and right. And so SJ, I am Gene Judson in the San Leandro stake, and Facebook messaged me. I don't know if we're connected already, but I will say when I was a kid, there were 6 wards in my stake. 2 remain.
Wow.
And we've added
Only
other stakes.
two wards in one.
Yeah. So there were 3 buildings with 2 wards in each of them, and now there are 2 of those original wards remaining. And
I
so
think
that
that's
is
hilarious.
That's wild to me, especially with the temple buildings. Because like here in Ulaanbaatar, there's a temple that was announced here in 2023. So it's obviously an attempt at a land grab, which I don't see going anywhere, honestly. But yeah, it's crazy how wards are closing down, but temples are going up. Like, who's maintaining the temples? That's what I want to know. If wards are closing down left and right, and if people are leaving.
Well, surely they won't have to pay someone to clean those temples because we know the church can't afford that.
No.
No, not at all.
Is that they're building all these temples, but they don't have enough people to staff them. And they sure as hell don't have enough people to fill up the sessions on all the days that they're open. And so honestly, I think that the church is grasping at ways that they can spend their $300 billion fortune. And they figure that land and buildings is a way to, spend the money while also having something that's going to appreciate and value.
And it'd be
Yeah.
such a waste to give it to poor people because they're
I
just going to
know,
waste
yeah.
it.
Yeah, poor people are just going to buy drugs and booze with it, so don't give it
Oh,
to them.
that's right. That's
Well,
right.
here's something that for the viewers who may not know how this works, the LDS Church, and this is something I found out relatively recently, was that the LDS Church announces temples in different countries prior to asking permission to see whether or not they can build there in the first place. There was a
Right.
temple announced in China. I'll give you one guess as to how that turned out. There was one announced in Russia. Again, I'll give you one guess as to how that turned out. They announced one here in Ulaanbaatar. My guess is they're being stonewalled because, here in Mongolia, very, very nationalistic, very proud of their traditions, and they don't like foreigners buying their land. So I don't see that going anywhere.
I have to say,
There's
if I
other
was prophet,
countries.
I would announce a Ulaanbaatar temple just to say Ulaanbaatar at General Conference.
Yeah.
And a new temple in Ulaanbaatar.
And a
I agree
new
with
temple.
Holly Cram that temples are $80 million lighted billboards.
That's right. That's all they are.
Yep. They're billboards.
Yep.
Hey, everybody, look at us. Look how true we must be. We can afford to build these ridiculously lavish buildings.
Inane buildings.
So there was a rumor. I was heavily involved in the temple, all of the temple excitement that happened in San Antonio in 2005. And I sang in the choir at the groundbreaking and at the temple dedication. And so, of course, they wanted to feed us with a bunch of faithful stories to help us sing better. So one of the stories was that when they were looking for land for the temple, they chose a site that was, kind of high up in the San Antonio landscape, which admittedly is not very hilly at all. But they chose a site that, I guess the stake president's comment to President who was it at the time? It was what's his name?
Hinckley, Monson.
Hinckley. Yeah, it was Hinckley. President Hinckley, his comment was, wow, we can see, we can see the whole city from here. And President Hinckley said, no, they can see us.
Oh, God.
It was like, we're up here on a hill with all these lights on so that everybody can see us. And that was like the big deal. And then all of these people, it was amazing. All of these people from different wards decided to buy houses that were closer to the temple so that they could literally be in the shadow of the temple 24/7. And it was kind of a ridiculous thing, but I don't know. I think about all these temples that church is building that are going to be empty most of the time, unstaffed. There aren't going to be enough people to really run them and clean them and all of that stuff. And yet there are probably tens of thousands of their members that are starving, and they could, do a lot of good with their own members. And that's kind of what I've always said is like, okay, fine, don't solve world hunger, but at least feed your own members who are starving.
Exactly.
Well, you look at the Gilbert Temple. The most expensive real estate in Gilbert is the housing development right around the temple. And that's how it is in so many cities. It's just
Houston,
another,
too.
just draw in those tithing payers.
Yep.
Yeah.
And let the little kids go without food for dinner or not have a pair of shoes for school, because paying your tithing is way more important than taking care of those little kiddos. Do I sound pissed off? Because I really am.
Yep.
Manisha brings up a good point, and that is, that Africa's most likely to be susceptible to the LDS Church, and I would agree with that. A lot of my following on Facebook is from Africa, so there's two main key points of why people in Africa convert. One, they're already Christian. Two, there are some ties between African folklore and the kind of folk magic that took place in Joseph Smith's era. So it resonates with them. And then there's also the aspect of the Heavenly Mother, which the church doesn't talk about other than she exists. And that is predominant in many African cultures as well. So it's an easy shift to go from kind of like quote unquote mainstream Christianity into the LDS Church.
Yeah. So I saw a couple of comments asking about
You need to slow
Lori's
down on the
dancing.
comments, Gene. You're not leaving them up long enough to read.
Yeah.
I know. There's too many to post.
Yeah.
Well, only pick pertinent ones, not.
Yeah.
So somebody was asking about Lori's dancing. Just if you've seen Flashdance, just imagine that. That's probably accurate.
Well, there you go.
No. Although the priesthood ban in Africa isn't like, people do know about it, but it's not really a big thing there. I'm not sure the dynamics as to necessarily why. I do know that some of it might be tribal, because I've got roughly 35,000 members, like followers from Africa, and some of them are members of the church. And I see a lot of like tribal conflicts on their pages, especially in Nigeria. So from what I've seen, at least of those, people anecdotally, is, yeah, the priesthood ban was a thing, but it's of this tribe. I'm not of this tribe, therefore it doesn't apply to me, is the logic that I'm seeing.
Gene
and that's
and
something you can't really argue against that, because that's a completely different dynamic than the West looks at it.
Well, Dave, Gene and I have a common Facebook friend who will remain unnamed, who served the mission in Los Angeles, but he's from Africa. And through his entire mission, no one ever told him about the priesthood ban.
Mm-hmm.
He never knew. Now he
Of course
knows.
not.
and he's living in Seattle now, and very much against the church because of the fact that they allowed him to go out and teach the gospel, but they conveniently forgot to tell him about the priesthood ban and his family back home.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It is crazy
Yeah.
too, because there's like so many different dynamics. It's like location based. It's
Yeah.
really just location based when it boils down to like different locations will be told different things.
So here's an example of something that everybody can learn from. If you put my name in the comment, I'll leave it up longer.
Oh my goodness. This is how Gene gets approval, you guys.
That's right.
Well, Megan, are you about ready to pass out? Because you were just going to
Actually,
come on and say
This is
hello.
reinvigorating her.
yeah, you guys are giving me energy.
And we're making her laugh. She didn't probably laugh all that much the last week, I bet.
I have not laughed that much this last week. So this is good.
Well, that's good.
I'm glad someone finds us entertaining.
I definitely do.
I'm just intrigued in all the comments.
Yeah, there's a like the chat's great. Megan's chat's amazing.
And Kresha, by the way, I have to say that that's the most beautiful name I've ever heard. Kresha.
Mm.
Okay, this is
I
where
like
you
it
guys
too.
say something like, yeah, really? Yeah, that's
He
beautiful.
means other than
I like it too.
Amanda is what he means.
Well, no.
Besides
yeah,
Amanda. But I think Kresha is
great,
beautiful.
get me in trouble.
What's her name? Kresha what?
Easton.
Just
On
the name
Facebook?
Kresha, I think, is a beautiful name.
Okay. What's Trahan? Kresha
What's
Trahan.
See, the
I'll
show could be over
follow
now
from
because
my
of
page.
SJ.
I'm just laughing at SJ.
What did SJ say?
See, because
Oh.
I'll tell you,
Gene.
I first got validation when Maven Brody taught me sort of how to chat, and I didn't know about the chat when I watched all kinds of videos and never knew about watching a live or anything. And then Mormonism Live came about, and then Maven started helping. And I didn't comment, I don't think, on any Mormonism Lives until Maven showed up, and she made the chat fun and engaging. And when you get your chat posted by either Maven or Bill, it makes you feel validated. And so thanks, SJ, and friend me.
Mhm.
We're in the Bay Area.
Mhm.
There you go.
Bay Aryans, right? I think that might not go over well in some places, but that's what I say.
Listen, Jane, you're good enough. You're strong enough.
And doggone it, people like me.
Yes, people like you.
We've
And what
gone
I
for
like to
2.5 hours, guys.
is that I'm a goddamn delight.
Yes, you are. I can agree with that. I
I'm
agree
just
with
here.
that.
Double D.
I'm just here, you guys. I'm just here.
Yeah, you're here.
Yeah, I'm just that guy.
Love it.
So there's the thing where it's who's the guy that says you look marvelous?
Billy Crystal.
Billy Crystal's
Darling,
character, right?
you look marvelous.
Yeah. To
It's
me,
Lorenzo Lama. Somebody Lamas.
he's doing Lorenzo Lamas, right? Fernando Lamas or Lorenzo.
Fernando Lamas.
Yeah, Fernando. And to me, Megan, your brain is marvelous. That's what I'll say.
I do have a brain that is interesting. Let's put it that way.
I
It is a
sometimes
brain.
use mine.
I sometimes use mine. It's a brain that's prone to rabbit holes. It's a brain that is prone to jump from topic to topic with no context whatsoever. So, if you like that kind of thing, then yeah.
This is actually a good question from Junie or Janae, whatever. Totally random question. What is the link between MLMs and Mormons? And I'll say
Man, we
what
could
it
go down
is the missionary work became business salespeople-ified when in the 50s, like IBM, they started wearing IBM suits more and stuff like that. And multi-level marketing is basically missionary work for a company's product. And Mormons figured that out, and Mormons figured out different ways of making money, because they want to make a lot of money, because they want to pay a lot of tithing, because they want to pay for a lot of temples, because they want Jesus to come. And then some people want to kill people so that Jesus comes. And so those are the two types of Mormons, we'll say.
prosperity gospel.
Pretty much.
So it's like it doesn't matter. You don't have to baptize a lot of people. How many people can the one that you baptize? And how many people can they baptize?
And how
Right?
great shall be your joy if you bring but one soul
One soul
into the kingdom of God.
Yes.
Or but one distributor into your diamond path downline.
I could go down a whole rabbit hole with this, because my uncle on my mom's side, not the Lori side, but my mom's side, is one of the founders of one of the biggest MLM companies ever. But that's a rabbit hole for another time.
That's right.
That's
and Elizabeth,
wild.
if you email Maven, we'll try to get her on the next time we do this show, which apparently is going to be every Saturday from now on.
No. I'm not giving up my Saturday nights.
All these
I want to.
people.
Go ahead, Megan.
Well, I was going to say I want to answer Kresha. She said Lori's sentencing date needs to be July 22nd. Kresha and I haven't had a chance to talk, but when I was sitting in the courtroom, Trina Kay actually came over to Kay and Brandon and suggested a date, and it was July 19th. And Kay kind of did a double take, and then she went, "Oh my gosh, that was the day that Charles was murdered. That would be a perfect day for the sentencing." But then it turned out that Judge Boreski had some other things on the calendar. So the sentencing is going to be July 25th.
Probably golfing.
No, it's not golfing. He has some training he's doing, and then the person whose courtroom we've been actually borrowing has some other cases, because Judge Boreski's courtroom was pretty small, and he decided to move to another courtroom that was larger to accommodate all of the press and public that wanted to come see the trial.
It's a popular place to be these days.
Yeah, but Kresha says, and this is right, July 22nd was supposed to be the end of the world. I can't tell you how many different dates that Chad and Lori and Julie Rowe had designated as the end of the world. But so far, none of them have happened. Weird.
They'll just rephrase it and say it's the end of the world as we know it. Things are totally different now.
Right.
Isn't that what the Jehovah's Witnesses said? That Jesus already came and visited the Mormons and us?
Yeah. Jesus already came. He let Chad and Lori out of jail, but somehow they're still there. Weird.
Well, I would like to share with you a little poetry that I wrote that I think is very apropos for this conversation. Do you mind if I tell you?
Please.
Okay, it goes like this. They said it couldn't be done, and so with a smile, I went to it. I tackled that job that couldn't be done, and by George, I couldn't do it.
I love it.
Thanks. Crickets.
I love it.
It's good. Very well done. Put that in the chat. Put that in the chat.
I'm not sure Randy wrote that.
You know what? You can't prove that in court.
I'm going to ask AI if Randy wrote that.
I can take my creative liberties when it comes to poetry.
You know what, Randy? You'd be surprised what you can prove in court.
I know, right?
I'm going to guess this is a bunch of hearts because I tried to do some hearts toward Krisha early on, and I got one black heart and a whole bunch of little boxes. So I'm going to guess this is hearts. So thank you, Kim D.
It's finger snapping. It's finger
snapping time.
It's finger snapping and
Exactly.
3 fire emojis.
Yep.
Thank you, Rio, for life.
And Krisha mentioned Hans and Birgitta Matson earlier on, and I don't remember exactly the whole thing about that. But when in COVID summer, I was listening to John DeLynn, and he was interviewing Hans and Birgitta Matson, and Birgitta said that Hans had found out all the stuff, and he wasn't going to church anymore, but she was still going to church, and she was at sacrament meeting, and they finished like the sacrament prayer. And she thought to herself, what the hell am I doing in church? Why am I not next to my husband? And she left. And that made me cry because I was in that spot. My wife was going to church, even though COVID, she was doing it on Zoom or whatever. But she had been going to church, and I totally was like, someday I hope that happens. And like 3 weeks later, I told Michelle, you have to know what I know. You could stay going to church, you could stay paying tithing, I don't care, but I'm so lonely with this information, I need to tell you. And in 1 week I shared with her a bunch of stuff, including the Matsons and Dan Vogel and other things, and she said, I can't believe Joseph Smith is a fraud. And she didn't go to church very much after that, and then stopped. And like I say, I go to church 5 times a year, and she doesn't go at all. But
Salt and pepper, yes, I am a grandpa, and thank you. I'm a grandpa 5 times.
My favorite thing about church during the pandemic was that I could close my laptop whenever I felt like it.
and I'll say I used to be a fun grandpa, but now I just totally hate kids. But I say that in jest because I do still love kids, but I had a back problem like 7 or 8 years ago, and the grandkids were jumping on me, and it was starting to hurt my back, and so that was the beginning of the end. But now I love them as teenagers and stuff, and they don't jump on me anymore. So
yeah,
that's good.
Well, this has kind of been a marathon program.
We've done almost 3 hours.
We're moving on 3 hours. I guess that's a polite way for me to say that I'm probably going to have to wrap it up.
Yeah, we need to wrap this up.
But I can't tell you how much, not only do I love our listeners, but I love you guys, my
fellow travelers.
I love you guys too.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, you're my community, you're my support, and I don't know what I'd do without you. So I'm so lucky to have become a part of Gene's harem here. So thank you, Gene.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Band of brothers and sisters. It's a carom, not a harem, right?
Oh my god. My god, I'm in another cult. What the hell?
There you go. Just remember, 5 times a day, stand up and point toward the South Pole and say Gene 3 times in your heart.
Gene.
Goodness.
There's a song that goes like that.
Well,
So anyway,
I appreciate you guys so much. and I'm sorry that I was not here for most of it.
It's not your fault. You need to be sorry.
We
the
can
airline.
coordinate something in the future.
Yeah,
Yes.
we'll do a thing, and we'll make it. We just won't have Gene just go crazy trying to make everything happen right away.
I wake up this morning and the first thing I see is a message from Gene about tonight, and I'm going, "Oh no!"
Yeah, that's why I was confused, because I threw out the idea thinking, all right, we'll do like a Mega Mondays for Megan or something. Or
So
like
now,
we'll
Dave, you
plan
have
it
to
up.
preface everything by saying, "Not today, Gene, but sometime in the future."
Yeah,
and then
apparently.
brainstorm.
I have not slept yet. Really, I got like an hour nap. I'm on an energy drink. It is 12:46 in the afternoon.
You need to go to sleep.
Wait, I just missed
I need
that
to get a
what
nap.
Precious said.
I need to get a
Precious
nap.
said
Yeah.
Yes.
Barry had wrapped it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're grateful to all of you who have subscribed during this or who are going to subscribe. Megan, I told your crowd that it would be an honor for us to have some of your people subscribe to this channel.
Yes.
I would love it. Yes, please. All of my people should subscribe to Ladder Daily Digest.
Yes.
I love these guys. We have so much fun together.
Yeah, do. Yes, we do.
And I'll say, when Megan first came on my show, she had 4,000 subscribers, and since then she's gotten 15,000 more. So if any other creators want the same kind of traction,
go on Megan's.
How many followers do you have again, Gene?
Well, I help other people get followers, and this is payback time. Randy is my new cheerleader, right?
I'm like the yeast in a loaf of sourdough bread. You're the starter. Isn't there a starter when you bake bread, like a starter?
Yeah.
That's when you do sourdough.
Sourdough, yeah.
Yeah. Gene's the starter, and I'm a loaf. So
that's right.
All right. Okay.
So there you go. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks to all of Megan's channel's people that lasted through. Somebody said a couple of weeks ago that our Tuesdays with Tim was a sausage fest. We probably got out of hand without Megan there. Without Megan there, we kind of get a little racy, but we don't swear as much as when Megan's there.
That's right.
And I don't mean that we swear. I mean we allow Megan to let us
Megan to swear.
Yes, you allow me to swear as much as
we allow you to
Megan,
swear. That's right.
In honor of our Tuesdays with Tim, go ahead and let us a blue streak out.
Oh, in honor of Tuesdays is Tim. Okay, well, all I can say is that, we got the verdict that we wanted.
We got the bitch.
And in order, yeah.
We got the bitch again.
In honor of Jerry Vallow, we got the bitch again. And fuck that bitch. That's all I got to say.
FTV, baby.
Somebody needs to pull a train on her.
Oh
right?
My God. Phrasing.
maybe just carry around a little voice recorder and record what you say all day, kind of review it, see what.
Yeah, this is great. Every channel I appear on gets demonetized for some unknown reason. I don't know what it is.
That's right.
Well, hey, this is 3 hours in, so we're okay.
I think MB might have been the first crossover fan from Megan's channel, but no matter what, MB is the best crossover.
MB is the best.
Yes,
MB is the best.
Is the best. I think MB's following my Fallout 4 gaming channel. Actually, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think so.
Wow.
Love it.
That's right. Happy Father's Day to everybody.
Yes,
Yeah.
happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day tomorrow. Thank you.
And
happy Father's Day to all the fathers
you.
and all of the mothers who are also fathers.
And happy Pride.
Right on.
That's right.
And
so
happy Pride.
I have a joke that
Happy
since
Pride.
Megan was allowed to say some things and Randy had said some things. In honor of Shaft, the music Shaft, right?
The movie?
So I am married, and my wife and I created 4 children, but I wasn't that good in bed. I was a bad motherfucker though.
What?
So there you go.
Yeah. Do you mind
That's
if
a
we
good way
share
to
that
end
with
it.
our friends? Because that's hilarious.
That is hilarious. So I'll put that recipe in the chat for all the rest of the shows for everybody to
Okay.
enjoy with their coffee.
Okay.
Oh my god. Oh my
You just
god.
went from
Okay.
Connections Whisper to BFM.
Oh my gosh.
So anyway, there you
All
go. Megan, I help Megan laugh. That's my job. And
Jocularity.
Thank you for
Jocularity.
that. I needed it.
Yeah, you did.
and so
Yeah, you
anyway,
did.
thanks for watching. Everybody have a great
Thank you.
2025. Megan, may you get the best rest ever.
Thank you.
Breathe. Randy and I learned how to breathe today. We're going to do a show that'll come out on Wednesday, I think, and we learned how to breathe. So I know that you breathed. You did some breathing when you're in the elevator.
I did. Well, I
You
did
did
a
some
lot of
breathing.
breathing.
So
I
I
did
know that you. So
yeah.
yes, I love oxygen so much. I breathe every day. That's what I do. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody. Goodbye.
All right.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
I'll
Good
end the
night.
stream. And
Deuces.
if anybody